Let's put our hands together and welcome our guest this morning. Ashley Gnys Personal Injury Law is joining us this morning, and Ashley is with us. And we have a lot of information to give you in a very short period of time. So let's go right to it this morning and welcome Ashley so we can get some questions answered. So if you've been injured by the negligence of someone else, you're certainly going to want to listen to the program this morning on how you can use the tools that are in your toolbox to help yourself to make sure that you're taken care of should a personal injury happen. Good morning, Ashley, and welcome to the Car Connection Workshop. Introduce yourself and to our listeners, if you would, Ashley, this morning, for those who haven't had a chance to hear you yet and an opportunity to perhaps even call and talk to you personally.
Niall, good morning. It's Ashley Gnys. Good to be back on the show again. I am in Niagara Falls. I have a law firm, and we specialize in matters involving personal injury. So now you've got to be hurt, generally, to come in and see me or have a dispute with an insurance company. And we've been doing this for about 40 years, and I love what I do. But
and
you know,
that's important.
This time of year, it gets real busy because of the cold weather coming.
That's right. You know, the nights are getting longer and the days are getting shorter. How many of us have noticed that it gets dark sooner and stays dark longer? I noticed that because I don't sleep. I think I'm afraid of the dark. But, you know, winter is pretty much landing on our back doorstep. And, you know, do you find, Ashley, as a personal injury lawyer, the season of the year affects the kinds of calls that you receive from accident victims?
You know, absolutely. It seems that the longer the nights get, the shorter the days become, and the colder the weather becomes. You know, hey, it's Canada, it's winter,
Yeah, it's
and
Canada.
soon anyway, and it gets slippery. So, you know, when we have a winter storm and we have a dump of snow or we have freezing rain, it gets pretty dangerous out there, and it leads people to, you know, falling as they're walking on the sidewalk or coming back from their car into the parking lot. And, you know, maintenance is not always done according to standards. So, yeah, we get a lot of calls because of people hurting themselves, typically from slip and falls, or it may be just a rear ender, you know, because the roads are slippery and people
Right.
get into a car accident. But it seems to be the time of year to have accidents.
How would you describe what happens with a typical falling accident? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Is that a bad pun?
No.
Walk you through it, and then we'll
Can you
fall
walk?
into it.
I wondered if you'd catch that. But
Yeah, good.
Once in a while I get a zinger.
Niall, have you ever encountered black ice as you have walked? You know, you're going along, no problem. You're being
Right.
careful, and then all of a sudden your feet just go out from under you because you've encountered something that you didn't expect, and it's black ice. And, you know, maybe there was a covering of snow that was hiding the presence of ice underneath. But, you know, the bottom line is there was no sand applied or no salt applied, and there was just a hazardous, slippery condition. If you're on steps or stairs, it's even worse. But, yeah, that's typically what happens.
So does it make a difference where someone has fallen? Because, you know, I remember one time I was picking up an order for the guys when we had our shop, and I did exactly what you talked about. I didn't see any ice present. I had the whole order in my hands, and I went down backwards, and everything went flying. But that was me. But does it make a difference where someone has fallen and what they must do to protect their rights?
Well, I'll tell you what, it certainly makes a difference if you're carrying hot coffee as you fall.
Yeah, I did.
You know,
I did
you're
that.
You're going to be a burn victim at the same time.
Right.
You know, part of the problem with falling is it depends very much where you are falling.
Okay.
Because now, if you were walking down the city sidewalk in Fort Erie or in Niagara Falls or wherever you are, there are some very, very short notice periods that have to be kept in mind. With the municipality, and in accordance with the Municipal Act, it's 10 days that you have to notify in writing the municipality that owned the sidewalk that you fell on. And with very few exceptions, if you don't do that and give a letter to the clerk of the town or the city, you're out of time and you can't sue. So it makes a huge difference.
Wow.
Now, if it's a privately owned parking lot or property that you're falling on, then typically you've got 2 years. But hey, if you don't know, you better find out right away. And then, of course, the problem is what municipality. In Niagara Falls, for example, it could be the regional municipality of Niagara. It could be the city of Niagara Falls. It has to be to the correct city clerk. So, yeah, these limitation dates can nip up and bite you.
So let's say if you fell on city sidewalk and you don't notify the municipality within 10 days that you've fallen, what happens then?
Well, call up the city hall where you fell. Tell them where it is that you fell, and bring a letter to the city clerk and ask them, is this sidewalk under the jurisdiction of your city? And if they say it's not, they typically can tell you who it is. But you've got to get a letter out to that person who is the city clerk in the municipality or the region that owns that sidewalk. And that's kind of a non-negotiable. You have to do that. And then keep a copy of the letter. Make sure you take down the name of the person that you present that letter to.
So there's things that need to happen quickly. We can't, procrastination is not going to help us here. So what if you didn't know about that 10-day rule, Ashley? Can't you just say, well, I wasn't aware of that requirement?
Now, have you ever heard of the expression, ignorance of the law?
I knew you were going to say that.
That's only a defense on TV, because in the real world, It's not a defense. Unless let's say you're walking down that sidewalk, you fell, and unfortunately you were carrying 4 coffees and you get scalding burns, you're in the hospital, and you're in a coma or you're in a dire medical situation. There could be an exception to that 10-day provision because you literally could not give anyone notification. But save and accept that kind of very few exception, there's no excuse. You are going to be prevented from presenting a lawsuit. Now, if it's a private property, it's a different story. But often where people fall, it may be in the front of a store. You don't know if that's private sidewalk owned maybe by the store or by the city. So you really have to act, because if you're wrong, you're very much going to be it's going to be to your prejudice.
So who gets notified if you fall due to icy conditions on a city sidewalk? Who's the go-to person for that?
It's the clerk of that town or city or region. So if you go into the municipal office, they will direct you to the right department. And they're certainly good in helping that individual, that taxpayer. Make sure you bring them an exact location as to where you fell, and, of course, your own contact information.
Why is the limitation so short, 10 days? Why is that, Ashley?
I think in part it's because if the city or the municipality will discover that hazardous area, they can then go immediately and take remedial attention and prevent other people from falling in that same spot. It's a little bit different if it's a private sidewalk. It may not be, or parking lot may not be used as much, but it's also partially designed by the government to save municipalities from exposure to lawsuits. So it's a public policy decision as much as anything. But in part, it's to protect other individuals that might be using that same hazardous strip so that they don't get hurt as well. But I think public policy as much drives it.
Where else do people typically fall other than sidewalks or outside a storefront?
Well, think now about where your typical day will take you in the winter, and it's probably pretty much just about the same places you'll go during the nice months. I would say that a parking lot is a very common place that people will fall. We've already discussed sidewalks, but people fall because of steps. I've got a client I'm representing right now. He went into a restaurant. It was a snowy day outside. The conditions were sloppy. He came into the restaurant, and he was going down the stairs to go to the bathroom in the basement, and there was no adhesive strips on the steps, and he slipped as he went off of one of the steps, fell down the remaining 4 steps, and really hurt himself by the time he came to a landing at the end. So steps is a frequent place where people will fall, especially if they're outside, because they're particularly hazardous because you're shifting your weight in an unusual way. And often there will not be railings in place. There'll be often infractions of the building code.
Wow, so that's where the negligence of others comes in play, I guess, not making sure that things are safe for
You got
patrons
it. Yeah,
going into
absolutely.
the business. So how can you determine, Ashley, if someone who has fallen has a legitimate claim? I guess this is a really big question that those who are listening this morning as we talk and being, having a personal injury, how do you go about determining, is it a legitimate claim from a fall?
Sure. That's a good question, because if I can use the analogy of a baseball game, first base would be determining liability, or just the term that lawyers use for fault. Who's at fault?
Right.
So there is a piece of legislation in Ontario called the Occupiers Liability Act, and people who own property have an obligation to maintain it so that it's kept reasonably safe for people using it. They're called an occupier under the legislation. So did they maintain that property with safety in mind? If it's in the winter, it's, sand and salt and clearing snow away, or if it's inside, is there railing present? Things like that, although the railings apply equally to the outside as well. But I guess getting to second base is, was the person who fell contributorily negligent? Did they do something that contributed to their own injury? For example, were they wearing inappropriate footwear? It's winter, you're not wearing boots, and you got leather-soled shoes, or you got stiletto high-heel shoes on. Maybe not the safest winter footwear now. So were they contributorily negligent? Then, of course, you go to third base, and that is, well, what is the damage complained of? How severe are the injuries? Has a person lost income? Can all of these damages be proved? And then for us as personal injury lawyers, reaching home base is settling the claim. But you've got to establish liability. You've got to ask, is the person who fell partially liable? How severe are their damages? Is it worthwhile? Because, if you recover in a week or a month, it may not be, it's kind of a trivial injury. So it has to be serious to have it presented.
Right. It can't just be, you got a bruise and everything else seems to be okay. And, like you said, like a week later, you're doing all right. That kind of circumstance would probably not be a legitimate claim, yes or no?
Totally. No, I agree. It would be a nuisance claim.
Okay. So what should people do then if we've got listeners this morning that have fallen, or say this particular winter, they should experience some kind of fall? What should they do aside from giving you a call for advice, Ashley? And this would also be a great time for you to give out contacting information so that those who are tuning in can grab that contact info to get in touch with you.
Well, if you are planning on having a fall and badly hurting yourself this winter,
okay,
which of course no one is, because that's why they call it an accident,
right.
Then you should keep in mind certain things, and that is, and most people will have a cell phone, so they'll have a camera on them generally at any time. Take a picture of where you fell. Now, if you're in a lot of pain, that's probably the last thing that you're going to be capable of doing. But if you have someone with you, or you can go back to that site so that you can take a picture. Really important to know where the location is. If there's anyone who saw you fall, maybe someone helped you up, get their name and phone number and contact information. They'd be an independent witness. That would be really crucially important. As you're in that area, still look around. Is there any sand? Is there any salt? What was it that caused you to fall? Is there a presence of ice, an oily substance, whatever? So look around you and just take an observation as to what's in the vicinity. But then go and have medical care right away. That's just common sense, and that's quite apart from your lawsuit. But it will prove that you've got an injury, and it will confirm what the diagnosis is, have your x-rays, if you got any broken bones. That could be really crucial for your future recovery. And then, of course, contact a lawyer such as myself and find out what your legal rights are. You can go to my website, which has a huge amount of information in terms of resources that would let people know which end is up. The website is www.ashleygnyshlaw.com. Now, that's a hard name to spell. A-S-H-L-E-Y, Ashley, that's easy enough. Gnys, that's a bit harder, G-N-Y-S, law.com. But there's a lot of information there. So if you, or even go to your website, Niall, and hit the link, you can get back to our website. Or, give us a call. When you've got a hard name like Ashley Gnys, you've got an easy phone number, which is 905-357-5555, 357-5555. So give us a call, and probably one of my delightful staff, maybe Elizabeth, will take your call and give you some information, and I'll have an opportunity of speaking to you and qualifying your case. But lots to know.
If I could keep you for a couple more minutes, Ashley, I wouldn't mind you discussing the importance of identifying a valid personal injury claim, and whatever the injury may be, along with the importance of springing into action once the claim has been deemed a viable claim / injury. Could you talk about that a little bit as well, so that you can clarify some of those things for our listeners?
It's a good point, because just because someone has had an accident doesn't mean that someone is culpable. The saddest thing in my world is someone who's hurt themselves and there's no one to sue, because this is what I do for a living.
Right.
Sometimes we're the author of our own misfortune, and there is no one that can be sued because the accident was not realistically preventable. So first of all, we have to determine who's at fault. And if the individual who's hurt, who's had the accident, is not at fault, they've established liability. And then, as you're saying, if someone has bruised themselves and they've got a rather minor injury, not worth presenting. But if there's any longer-lasting disability and impairment that lasts as a result of that trauma, then there's going to be losses that could be quite substantial and legitimate that flow from it. So the next part is just simply to qualify the potential value of the claim, which is difficult to do. But once you get beyond a month, 2, 3 months, people can take often years to be able to recover. So the medical process can really last quite a while. So after contacting a lawyer, we generally say to our caller, here's what you need to do, but give us a call back in 3 or 4 months and let us know how you're doing. If we don't get a call back, that generally means that they've recovered in the meantime and that it wasn't worth presenting. Particularly with car accidents now, it's not easy to present a claim for pain and suffering with the motor vehicle legislation that we have in Ontario now, unless your injury is going to be permanent and serious. So there are certain sort of threshold tests that injuries have to meet, particularly if it's a motor vehicle accident. Fortunately, those same tests don't apply to a slip and fall or trip and fall or other kinds of injury. But it's a very complicated set of laws depending on how people hurt themselves.
So there's a lot to consider. But I think from what I've heard you say so far, the most important thing is to make that call so that it can be determined as quickly as possible what needs to be done, how quickly it needs to be done, what needs to be done, and to validate the claim before it's too late.
And, even before that stage, when someone is hurt, look around you. What happened?
What happened?
Because we're going to be asking these questions, and if you don't know, it's going to jettison your case. How is it that you fell, or what happened in that car accident? What were the facts? Not your speculation, not your theory. What did, in fact, happen? So if people don't look around them and don't know, then they're not going to be able to give an explanation as to why whoever was that owned that property or owned that car might have been negligent and breached the standard of care. So keep your wits about you as you're there, or if someone's with you. What happened? Why am I down here? Why am I down on the ground? What happened? And, of course, it's tough because people are significantly in pain, and it's the last thing you think of. That's true. Counterintuitive.
Yeah, and with today's technology on our cell phones, you can capture video, you can do still shots, you can do audio, you could, even, like you said, if you're in serious pain, that's going to be the last thing on your mind. But the more, from what you're saying, the more data, the more information that a person can collect at the scene of the injury, the better things will be when you have to represent them.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And, interestingly, with the advancements of technology, we quite often now have videos of the accident. Sometimes it's in, a pool area of, might have been a casino or in a shopping plaza, or it could be a camera on the dash of a car. that actually catches the accident taking place. I even had one. The person had a camera mounted outside their garage, and it showed a neighbor dog coming up and biting them, and it's all on video. It's unbelievable. I have another one where someone was driving behind my my client and saw the accident take place in front of him, and he's got it on his camera and gave it to my client who brought it into me, and it's all there in the video. It's unbelievable.
So does that make things easier for you when it comes to putting together all the details for the claim, the injury?
It makes it easy even for me.
Right.
Less
paperwork.
Wow.
Watch this video.
I love it when I see the video. It's great.
Yeah, that sure makes it easy. Well, Ashley, I've kept you a little longer, and I hope you don't mind. But if you wouldn't mind giving out your contacting information one more time, then we'll let you go to begin your weekend. And we thank you so much for being a part of Car Connection each and every week, and also taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on air and educate us on how we can protect ourselves when we've been injured by the negligence of others. And I can attest to that because I had no idea. I've had some pretty interesting things happen to me that in just talking to you, I should have talked to you years ago when it happened and could have had my own injuries taken care of that I'm paying for today. So Ashley, if you would close things out by giving out your contacting information so that those that are listening, I hope you got something out of what Ashley and I covered, the questions and the answers. And if you need to connect with Ashley, he's going to tell you how to do that right now.
I will, Nala, and I know that you've had your own serious car accident, so you know from what you speak. It's a difficult thing to recover from, isn't it?
So here's
the contact information. My phone number is 905-357-5555. I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. We do work for people on both sides of the border in the United States. I have a lot of clients in the United States as well as Ontario. When you have 14 million people coming to Niagara Falls every year, a lot of people get hurt here and then go home. So my website is AshleyGnys.com. That's spelled AshleyGnys, law, LAW.com. And a lot of resources there for you. If you go to the website, there's a toll-free number that you can use to call us if you're out of town. You can send an online submission through our website by email. Tell us about your case, and we can get back to you that way. Or you can just simply come give us a call and come into the office, and we can chat that way. So a variety of ways, by email, by online submission, by a website, phone call. We're here to help you, and we've been doing this work since 1979. I've got a great team. We care, we're detailed, and we're effective, Niall, and I appreciate the time this morning.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll have you back to join us on the air again sometime in either December or early in the new year.
You too, buddy. Merry Christmas to you. I know it's still a month away, but we may not
it's close.
Chatting, and be careful as you're doing that Christmas shopping, that you walk very carefully.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Ashley. Again, we appreciate you. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye now.